Hello everyone. In this video we are going to have a look at grouping data. We've seen the concept of grouping data before in the chapter in year 2, but this time we have some more tools and we are going to add some more terminology, some more vocabulary to what we're doing. And I'm just going to do that with an example. So I'm going to grab this little table here where I've already grouped my data into different class intervals. Each one of those intervals right here is one of these class intervals, and we now have the tools to write them as intervals in interval notation. So, for instance, if we have a look at this interval, the three people in that interval have a height that can be anywhere between, I wanted to write between 1.60 meters and 1.65 meters. So even if they're 1.64999, etc., they are in that interval. But 1.65 is not because of the pointed brackets. 1.65, someone that's 1 meter 65 will be in the next class interval. Now these two numbers, and I would like a thicker line for that. These two numbers, we call them the class boundaries. The boundaries of this particular class. And with that, we can also calculate the class width. Which is the difference between our class boundaries. So in this case, my class width is 0.05 meters or 5 centimeters. One more interesting point when we already have this is now I lost track of myself. One more interesting point is the midpoint of my class. And that is just by taking the average of my, again, class boundaries. So this time I don't take the difference. Instead, I add them and divide by 2 to get the average, rather the mean. And we see that 1.625 is my midpoint. So those are a couple of terms that we can use with grouped data. Now, in some cases, something interesting happens, and I have a different example for that. That's this one. So let's drag that up. Because here, I might have an interval. Let's go back to black. An interval from 5 to 10. Apparently I can't erase anymore. There we go. From 5 to 10, and we might say that's anything between 5 and 10. But this time we're talking about amount of countries. I can't really have 9.5 countries. So those 6 are either had 5 countries, 6 countries, 7 countries, 8 countries, or 9 countries. And a 10 doesn't really actually play a part. So instead, we might say that this interval is from 0 to 4, but with closed brackets. And this one then from 5 to 9, etc. And this also means something for our boundary points, for our class boundaries. Well, I think the idea is clear, because really my class boundaries here are those numbers, the lowest possible number, 5, and the highest possible number, which is 9. Which also means that my class width is not the difference between 5 and 10, even though it looked like that. My class width is a difference between 9 and 5, difference between my class boundaries. So the class width is really only 4. And the midpoint then, in the same way, this time 9 plus 5 divided by 2, 14 divided by 2, my midpoint is 7 and not 7.5. So the difference here is whether this final point actually really matters. If my final point is the 1.65 meters, yeah, then anything up to 1.65, doesn't matter how close you get, is still in there. So we still need to consider it. And then we just take 1.65 as our class boundary, even if we don't actually reach it. But in this example, we don't reach 10, we don't reach 9.9. We very clearly, the final number we can get, there is a final number, and that's 9. And then we take that as a class boundary instead. So the question is really, oops, that was probably called by the microphone what I just did. The question is there a final number in the interval? And that is what you have to keep in mind there. So that's all well and good. One final thing, because I've just been mentioning those midpoints, but why would we even want those? Well, the thing is, if I have my midpoints, I missed the M here. Let's copy everything. So I have my midpoints if I would write them in green. So we have 2, 7, 12, 17, 22, 27, and 32. These are the numbers I'm going to use if I'm going to calculate the mean. So I don't know exactly how many countries this one person had, but I'm just going to pretend they have 2. And then we have 6 people where we're just going to say they had 7 because that was the midpoint. 5 people had 12, 5 people had 17, and 2 people had 32. And this way we can calculate the mean number of countries. The mode is fairly easy. It's just the largest amount. So the class of interval of 5 to 9 is the mode. And the median, we still just take the middle. So there are a total of 9 entries, 19 rather. And the 10th entry, that's the middle one, happens here. So this one would be the median in this case. And the same, we would do the exact same with the first table. So those are a few notes about group data and how we can calculate different averages with that.